Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a slice of history that completely flips the script on how we usually think about the Middle Ages. We're talking about the nearly 800-year era of Al-Andalus. It's an incredible story of unexpected zeniths, devastating wars, and a legacy that quietly but fundamentally reshaped the modern world.
Okay, let's dive right into this. How exactly did a European peninsula become a massive Islamic superpower? It's just such a crazy historical contrast. I mean, picture this. While much of Western Europe was struggling through the early Middle Ages, what people often call the Dark Ages, Al-Andalus emerged as this completely unexpected marvel. It was a thriving, cosmopolitan superpower sitting right there on the edge of Europe, shining with wealth, scientific innovation, and absolutely stunning architectural wonders. There is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the birth of Al-Andalus. Then, Cordoba's golden age, followed by the pioneers of early science. From there, we'll look at the fragmentation and fall, and finally, an enduring cultural legacy.
Section 1. The birth of Al-Andalus.
Let's see how this all builds over time. Our story really kicks off in the year 711, when an Umayyad commander named Tariq ibn Ziyad crossed the Strait of Gibraltar with a pretty small army. He originally arrived to just intervene in a local civil war, but he ended up securing a decisive victory that kicked off a timeline of sweeping, centuries-long political shifts. Within just 7 years, most of the Iberian Peninsula was conquered. By 756, an independent emirate is established, which then escalates to a declared caliphate in 929, leading all the way up to the final fall of Granada in 1492.
Now, to really grasp how that emirate was established in 756, we've got to talk about Abdul-Rahman I. His story is literally an unbelievable survival thriller, a classic fish-out-of-water tale. Back in Damascus, the rival Abbasid dynasty had completely overthrown his family, the Umayyads, and were actively slaughtering them. Against all odds, he miraculously managed to flee. He spent 4 years wandering in exile across North Africa, constantly dodging assassins, before finally washing up on the coast of Spain.
So once he's in Spain, Abdul-Rahman manages to build a coalition and actually captures the city of Cordoba. But the Abbasid Caliphate back home, they definitely hadn't forgotten about him. They sent an army all the way to Iberia to destroy his new emirate. In what seemed like a totally impossible situation, Abdul-Rahman fortified himself in the fortress of Carmona with barely a tenth of the troops of his enemy. But in this desperate, thrilling last stand, he threw open the gates, completely caught the resting Abbasid army off guard with a sudden charge, and won a stunning victory. And that single battle secured the future of an independent Al-Andalus.
Section 2. Cordoba's Golden Age.
This absolute zenith of the empire was ushered in by his descendant, Abd al-Rahman III. In 929, he leveled up the state's status on the world stage by officially declaring the Caliphate of Cordoba. And this triggered a massive, frankly mind-blowing population boom, 500,000. Just let that sink in for a second. It is wild to realize that way back in the 10th century, a European city of 500,000 people actually existed. It was massive and it was immensely prosperous. Because Cordoba wasn't just big, it was without a doubt the most advanced city in all of Europe. We're talking about a metropolis that eventually overtook Constantinople in both size and sheer global influence. It operated as this buzzing epicenter for the arts and philosophy, totally fueled by a vast Mediterranean trade network dealing in silk, ceramics, and gold. And its renowned libraries and universities, they drew incredibly ambitious scholars from across the known world, creating this ultimate melting pot of intellectual pursuit. Section 3. Pioneers of Early Science. So all those visiting scholars, they sparked a completely groundbreaking era of scientific achievement. Now, what's really interesting about this is a guy named Al-Zaharwi. Around the year 1000 CE, Al-Zaharwi, who is widely considered the father of early surgery, compiled the Kitab al-Tathrif. And this wasn't just abstract philosophical theory. He was documenting real practical treatments, like the safe removal of kidney stones, and he illustrated dozens of surgical instruments that look shockingly similar to the exact ones doctors use in modern hospitals today.
And this 11th century intellectual explosion touched almost every single discipline you can think of. It's like a giant puzzle of human progress coming together. In medicine, you've got pioneers like Ibn Zuhur giving us the very first clinical descriptions of the scabies mite. Meanwhile, astronomers like Ibn Rushd were looking up, boldly critiquing older Ptolemaic models so they could accurately track solar movements.
And looking down at the Earth, agronomists mapped out hundreds of plant species supported by these massive state-sponsored irrigation networks and breathtaking botanical gardens. They were a society completely obsessed with progress.
Section 4. Fragmentation and Fall.
But as with all great empires, things eventually started to crack. Following a really ruinous civil war in the early 11th century, the whole political reality of Iberia shifted drastically. And the contrast here brilliantly illustrates what happened. We go from a unified powerhouse with massive wealth and a strong central authority to shattered, divided puzzle pieces known as the taifas. These were dozens of isolated mini-states. And while they managed to hold on to a lot of cultural wealth, politically and militarily they were incredibly weak, often having to pay heavy tribute to the northern Christian kingdoms just to survive.
So, with the South completely splintered, the momentum of the Christian conquests rapidly accelerated. This push was really punctuated by the shocking annexation of Toledo in 1085. Panicked, the Taifa leaders called upon the Almoravids and later the Almohads, which were these powerful dynasties from North Africa. Now, while these empires intervened and briefly halted the Christian advance, their rule ultimately fractured and collapsed under the immense geopolitical pressure. By the mid-13th century, almost all the major southern cities had fallen. But amazingly, one final stronghold held out, the Emirate of Granada. Honestly, it is truly fascinating that they managed to survive for over 250 more years against just absolutely impossible odds. Ruled by the Nasrid dynasty, they cleverly used the rugged Sierra Nevada mountains as a natural defensive barrier, and they played a brilliant, if super precarious, game of diplomacy with the Castilian kings. They even managed to build the breathtaking Alhambra Palace during this exact time. But eventually, the unified forces of the Catholic monarchs laid a final siege, and Granada formally surrendered in 1492.
Section 5. An Enduring Cultural Legacy.
Okay, so while the political empire officially ended in 1492, its societal impact absolutely did not. A huge part of that lasting legacy stems from its incredibly unique social fabric. As a Muslim-ruled territory, it fostered a dynamic environment where Arab and Berber populations lived right alongside large Christian and Jewish communities. And while these groups were distinct, they were deeply intermingled. Jewish and Christian citizens frequently served in absolutely vital civic roles as doctors, ambassadors, tax collectors, and essential merchants. This deep, diverse talent pool was a major key to their incredible success. Because of this deep diversity, Al-Andalus effectively served as a massive cultural conduit for the rest of the known world. So the crucial point is that even after major cultural hubs like Toledo were conquered, the knowledge didn't just disappear. Instead, Christian, Jewish, and Muslim scholars collaborated in institutions like the famous Toledo School of Translators. Together, they worked tirelessly to translate vast libraries of ancient Arabic scientific and philosophical texts into Latin. And those translated works were then funneled directly into Italy and the rest of Europe. Which really leaves us pondering one final, totally remarkable question. When all those translated texts on medicine, astronomy, and Aristotelian philosophy came flooding into a Europe that was really just starting to shake off the Dark Ages, how much of the great European Renaissance was ultimately sparked by the brilliance of Al-Andalus? It's a spectacular testament to interconnected human progress. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.